Welcome again to the real estate world. Let's get real. I'm Kara Rafferty, one of your hosts with Jamie Michelle Kane.
Hi, guys.
Welcome, Jamie. Welcome, Jamie. Welcome back, Carlo. Welcome back, Jeff.
Jamie Michelle Kane.
For those people that are tuning back in, we did some introductions on part one of our call of financial vehicles and advanced planning. Carlo took us through some really great vehicles where we talked about the Paycheck Protection Program, a guide to how to utilize that, a guide to how to fill out and move forward with the SBA disaster loans. No collateral is needed for these stabilization programs. So we highly recommend, if you are tuning in because this is the newest podcast in our channel, go back, take the 20 minutes, hear Carlo. And I'm going to say it like this: just because you don't think it's for you, or maybe you think it doesn't apply to you, it probably applies to someone you know.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So take the 20 minutes, take a listen to it. But Jeff, I had the privilege of hearing you speak on DSTs and 1031 exchanges 6 months ago.
Yes.
A lot has changed now, huh?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Before we let you jump in, I mean, Jamie, you are the connection to Carlo and Jeff. So, why do you think, I mean, before Jeff just jumps in, and Carlo, I want you to just jump in as you see.
Okay, great.
Jamie, why do you think it was such a natural fit for Jeff to start talking to some of your real estate clients? And why did you start introducing him to everyone?
Sure. Well, he's great. Once you hear him talk, you will understand why he's so charismatic and presents so well to groups. So that's why I continue to go back and always value him as a co-speaker with the programs I'm running. But for those of you who don't know necessarily my practice, I do have a niche in investor clients. I like to service the real estate industry. From the investor world, I'm very corporate minded. So I like that cross between business planning and real estate. I think they go hand in hand. I work all the time with my corporate department at Boylan Code to work on my files. So when the HSTPA, which is the Housing and Stability Tenant Protection Act, passed in June, in conjunction with the pending legislation for good cause eviction, which would put caps on the dollar amount that landlords could charge annually to their tenants, Jeff's programs and investment tools that he supports in his business model fit exactly what my clients are looking for in a scenario where they do not want to have ownership of New York property, but they don't want to necessarily move out of New York State yet. And he has a host of other products he could talk about also, but that's where my clients right now find him to be the greatest resource in those discussions of planning for potentially exiting the New York market, which my clients, if you're watching this, not necessarily something I want you all to go about doing, because I love you all and I love working with all of you. But this is always, I'm real. So, we're here on the Real Estate Real channel here. I'm a real person. I like to give my clients the real-time talks and the hard talks sometimes about planning and succession of what to do with their investments. And the last thing I want to do is send them into a tailspin without a safety net. And Jeff, you are the safety net that I feel like is the best suited resource right now. And that's why we continue to do what we do together.
That's fantastic. Well, I couldn't ask for a better intro. Should I just hop right in here? And
Absolutely. This is your hot seat now.
All right. I'm in the hot seat. All right. Well, first of all, don't hate me for doing this, but I do have a disclaimer. I just want to, because I'm a financial advisor, just want to read Spectrum Capital Management, as well as my partners, Great Point Capital. We're not tax advisors. Any tax implications or discussion should be had with an independent tax advisor. I do not offer tax or legal advice. This is not an offer to buy or sell securities. Securities can only be offered through a private placement memorandum. Okay, hopefully I didn't lose the whole audience after reading that. But again, thanks for having me on. And absolutely, I mean, this was important conversation to be having before coronavirus, and then certainly now I appreciate, all the kind words that you said about, being a good speaker. My mother is a retired teacher, and I love the educational aspect of what we do. Einstein said, if you can't describe something simply, it's because you don't understand it. So I enjoy that challenge. I enjoy fielding questions from people, no matter how big or how small or silly a question they think it might be. Yeah, so, the 1031 DST, before we get into that, I'll first, I guess, describe what is a 1031 exchange. A lot of, Jamie, you mentioned earlier, a lot of real estate investors, real estate companies, it's something they do all the time. They're very familiar with it. You help them with it. Other attorneys, CPAs help them with it. So they're very familiar. For those not familiar, it's a way to exchange one property for another. It's what's called a like-kind exchange. And because you're exchanging one property for another, government basically says, we'll let you defer your taxes and depreciation and so on. And so, it makes a lot of sense. And for some people, that's just a part of how they do business.
Right.
The Delaware Statutory Trust, what that is, and we'll just call it DST for short, without, overcomplicating things unnecessarily. What that is it allows for people to pool resources together. The trust is a singular entity that will then go and purchase a larger commercial property. And so what they end up exchanging for is fractional ownership. They still get to defer taxes. They still get to actually continue an income stream. And this is from professionally managed investment grade properties that, the financing's already built in. It's really a hands-free exchange. And so a lot of people find that, an easy kind of turnkey solution. We've got a very broad inventory, maybe, one of the biggest in the country in terms of partners that we work with. And so, and I'll dig back, into, maybe why somebody might do something like this, but we've got a broad assortment of different types of properties, everything from student housing to industrial, did I say storage already? Storage, student housing, multifamily, single family, industrial, single tenant, triple net, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And so they can get that geographical diversification, just like Jamie was saying. Our primary objective is to help people not only create wealth, which they've probably done, but certainly in the kind of environment that we're in today, and, we're all hoping it's short-lived, but people are certainly concerned about preserving their wealth. And, look, we've got these properties and, it's just a lot of pain has been introduced to what was otherwise a steady thing.
Walk me through this, Jeff. So I want to sell property that I own that's multifamily in New York State. And yep. I'm looking at a scenario where, do I have to buy multifamily in another state, or can I diversify my portfolio and go into student housing, let's say in Chicago?
Absolutely. It's a great question. And so, first of all, to qualify for a 1031 exchange, it does have to be investment or real estate, rental property, something like that. So it can't be their house they live in or vacation home, something like that. But that's one of the best parts, is that because we've got this broad inventory, they can exchange into virtually anything that they want. Process is very much the same. They sell the property. The proceeds go directly to a qualified intermediary, which, for those who are unfamiliar, it's kind of a specialty escrow agent of sorts. They hold on to the assets, and then literally within days, after we tell them we'd like to diversify it into this one property, or a few different properties and a few different geographies and so on, these generally close within just a couple of days, which is great.
One of the biggest questions I get from clients all the time is, what kind of returns do your product offer as opposed to just selling the property and putting in your bank account the proceeds?
So it's a great question. Well, certainly if they take the proceeds and they pay the taxes, that's going to have a direct hit on the amount of capital that they get. So that's probably first and foremost. The types of cash returns that these things pay out, more than happy to discuss that offline. But what I can say here is that the goal with institutional kind of investment grade real estate or investments is stability. And so sometimes in exchange for stability, maybe it's not knocking the ball out of the park, but that's okay for us. And I think stability, a year ago maybe was one kind of conversation, but today's environment, stability, you can there's a premium on that. So
absolutely. But with what comes with this product is you don't have to manage these properties that you're investing in other areas that might have better returns still than the state of New York, let's say, in a good cause model. So despite COVID-19, which is kind of scrambling the market right now, these are things that you can own something and it's passive where you're not going to have to pick up phone calls and handle maintenance phone calls all night long, correct?
That's exactly right. There's something we call the 3 T's, which is teenagers, toilets, and trash. These are available, virtually to anybody that meets the, eligibility criteria to do them. Generally, we see people that are, in their maybe 60s or 70s that are like, we've built a portfolio of real estate and we just no longer want the 2 a.m. phone call or just some of the hassles, whether it's New York State related or whatever. And we really truly want, because right now, if you do a 1031 exchange into another property and you don't do a DST, you've got new debt, you've got new tenants. And if you're doing that out of state in this kind of environment, that might not be the best decision. I mean, that might.
Well, you're relying on a management company that maybe you don't have any history with to know how they would deal with it. And certainly with right now, I mean, if we take the situation we're in where you're not able to go traveling to take care of a property, you potentially have a disaster on your hands other than just what COVID-19 is presenting.
That's exactly right. And so, and there's other problems too. I mean, I just this morning was on a phone call. Somebody had a 1031 exchange already in process. They had already sent the funds to the qualified intermediary. And the phone call I got from the real estate broker said, this is coming up against the deadline. There's a 180-day deadline in terms of, and I know we're talking about those things, there may be some wiggle room, but that's right now that's being proposed. It hasn't actually passed legislation.
Right. So what you're speaking about, I brought up on my Facebook Live the other day, which is, has the IRS issued guidance, because that's the only way under the statute that they can extend the 45 and the 180-day time periods. And, you just confirmed what I've been watching, which is they have not been extended to date, which is kind of interesting.
Absolutely. And so, this particular couple, very kind of classic scenario, 60s, 70s, and they've got this deadline, and the DST can in some instances kind of be a Band-Aid or 1031 insurance, right? So we know that we can close this within a couple of days. We just have to understand their personal financial situation and what makes the most sense for them.
That is awesome. I am definitely going to be spreading that message in addition to what I already spread for you, because there are, without that specialized guidance in place, I know I have pending 1031 deadlines that my clients are going to be up against, even for just locating replacement property in the 45 days right now, because they can't go in and do inspections in these properties. And so that's the problem here, is locating and maybe even identifying that process of where maybe you are actually touring a place to see, is this something in fact that I want to itemize as a potential for purchase? And now you can't use it as a replacement property because you don't want to identify something you haven't gotten a chance to go in and look at.
Right, exactly. And, we can't forget, too, that this market is continually changing. I mean, right now, today, there's significant challenges in New York City. There's nothing that says that might extend in other parts of the country. And so that's, again, where having that broad inventory really matters. We might also see certain asset classes within real estate do better than others. One of the nice things of these is these generally will stay active, if you will, for like 5-6 years. So if somebody is in currently multifamily and they want to get into industrial, it's not a forever thing. It's 5 or 6 years. And in 5 or 6 years from now, we might be in a very different market. And we might say, now's a great time to get into student housing. And so we can have that kind of continual dialogue and kind of block and tackle as we need to.
So talk to me briefly before we wrap up. How, when you diversify and you put, let's use that example of I gave you, you have New York investment property, you're going to go into Chicago, which we all know is my favorite city, go Cubs. We're going to go ahead and we're going to buy student housing or buy into student housing in Chicago. How long before that fully is able to be sold or moved around again, where maybe you decide, okay, this isn't giving me the rate exchange that I wanted, or maybe I want to do something because an opportunity comes off back in New York. How quickly can you get in and stay out? Are there time limits where you have to actually hold ownership of something?
Yeah, that's a great question. These are considered illiquid assets. It is considered an illiquid exchange. And so that's part of my job is, again, to really understand a person's circumstances and, try to avoid, a need for liquidity within the next couple of years, right? It's partly why these are generally available to accredited investors. But, there is flexibility. Certainly if somebody passes away, they can get money out and things like that. It's pretty flexible. Again, these are properties that we have. If you could imagine products on a shelf, at any point in time, we might have, a few dozen to choose from. And again, because they generally, don't go full cycle for, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, it gives us the ability to, down the road change into something else. So, again, diversified across the nation by asset class, limited liability. So, if one of the partners in this goes bankrupt, it doesn't affect you at all. Independent. Yeah, you can customize the investment amount. So, maybe you sell a property locally for $500,000 and maybe you find a replacement of your own for $350,000. This could actually serve as that missing puzzle piece, so you don't have a taxable liability. So no burdens of management. I think that's the biggest thing. Is it's a true kind of passive alternative. And then I think just to answer that other question you had, yes, you can. Once you go into a DST, you can 1031 back into another DST, or back into traditional brick and mortar. So really, it's just flexibility and ease that it can be a really good thing for people.
Sounds like the best solution right now that I've heard in a COVID-19 model, other than potentially this SBA disaster relief loan, which is the continuity protected, and to have that safety net that I talk about all the time with you of, just making sure we built this investment up, that we make sure we sustain it, because a lot of my clients, this is their retirement. This is everything that they've got is built in property, and we don't want to start to see that devalued, especially with the volatility that we're experiencing right now.
Absolutely. And, I think that's really just such a critical piece. To be in the 1031 DST space and to do it well, not only do you need to be resourceful and capable, but also very thoughtful and truly understanding people's needs. And, in this kind of environment, having a lot of empathy, trying to do that. I've actually partnered with 2 colleagues because New York City, we know, is very different than upstate. It's kind of its own animal. Sure. And so I've partnered with Alexander Steinberg, and he covers Queens, Bronx, and Long Island. And then Peter Chernin, who covers Manhattan and Brooklyn. And then I'm basically upstate New York. And similar to Carlo, we do operate nationally as well. But we just felt that, in the kind of New York City area, you really need to understand New York to do business there. So
yeah, and they're amazing. Alex and Peter, if you're going to watch this, hi. I got the pleasure of meeting all, the 2 of you plus Jeff in New York City. Again, we were all hanging out. They were sponsors for our real estate roundtable that we put on with Under One Roof. And you guys are all amazing. It was very, very nice to meet all of you. And the level of education, the level of professionalism and sophistication on dealing with every one of them. And I've had multiple conversations now, both with Alex, Peter, and Jeff. There's not a better team that I would feel great about directing my clients to than your company. So that is my referral source. You know that is. And, you know, from everybody across the state listening, whether you're in Rochester, Buffalo, Syracuse, or in, you know, Long Island, where I'm from, New York City, Westchester, North Country, everybody should be contacting both Carlo and Jeff. They can accommodate everything you need in the state of New York, and pivotal persons to contact right now in the middle of a COVID-19 crisis.
Absolutely. I mean, nothing would make us happier than to really just field questions for people. This is not, you know, for everyone in every situation, but, you know, we're happy to educate because, you know, even after coronavirus, you know, just to know that this from a planning perspective is something that's available maybe in 10 years for you. So we do genuinely enjoy educating people. We have a website that's in construction, but it's up and pretty much running at this point. It's www.gpc, which is Great Point Capital, 1031exchange.com. That should be in the comments below, and my other contact information. But again, thank you so much. You know, you've been a great partnership for us and for me, and you know, excited to help people out in this environment.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys both. And I'm going to throw it back to Kara for closing remarks, but we very much appreciate it and appreciate the time. We know everybody's super busy right now. So this is a wonderful resource that our clients and anyone watching who wants to be any of our clients gets to watch and contact us.
Perfect. Thank you, Jamie. So again, this was part 2 of a 2-part series, all about different financial vehicles. Some about stabilizing any issues you're having right now, others about just continuing to plan, advanced planning for the future, or alternative financial vehicles right now. So obviously, I'm just going to quickly wrap up and say, as always, or I should say for now, our wonderful sponsor, thank you so much, Under One Roof. Visit underoneroofny.org. That is a coalition across New York State to protect landlords and tenants. So please check out our sponsor's website. And to follow Jamie or myself on Twitter, Jamie is at Jamie Michelle Kane 6. I will drop that in the comments. I'm at Kara Rafferty 1. And thank you for tuning into our channel. Like us,
safe, everybody.
Stay safe.
Great. Sounds great. Thank you so much.
Bye, guys. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.